Hello everyone, welcome to another edition here of Cookies Enabled, and this week we are breaking down the internet, and in this video we break down specifically the history, how and who started the internet, and how did it become this giant industry that we know and love today. So stick around and let's learn something new together. We start our connection to the internet in the 1960s USA with MIT making the first connection between computer terminals and sent a series of memos between those computers. So the man behind the MIT experiment went to work for DARPA, which in that same year they built the first computer network, which was actually called the ARPNet, and that was really where it all started. And this was all because in the 60s we had the Cold War going on. The Soviet Union had just launched Sputnik into space, and that was a huge problem for the United States. We didn't have anything like Sputnik yet. So the internet was our solution to that, and by connecting all the Defense Department computers together, this would make us even more ready for an attack and ready to defend ourselves just in case something happened. And luckily nothing did. It is known as the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. Man, that's a mouthful. Only companies and special organizations that worked with the Defense Department were able to use the ARPNet, which meant it was extremely expensive to maintain, and very few people had membership on it. So not a lot of people even knew it existed. And for almost 2 decades, this is how the internet existed as ARPNet. And it would be the only way for anyone to connect to the internet until January 1st, 1983, when TCP/IP all came out, which that stands for Transfer Control Protocol / Internet Work Protocol, and that came out allowing any computer to communicate with any other computer or device on any network or on different networks at the time, since there wasn't like a plethora, there was only about 2 or 3. So that's really when things changed, and the minds behind the TCP/IP configuration was actually NASA. They were the ones that came up with that, and they were the first ones to use it to connect over 20,000 scientists were connected across 7 continents, making it the first multi-protocol wide area network. Definitely cool and extremely important since we use those every single day now. Now, ARPNet also switched to the TCP/IP connection status in the exact same date, January 1st, 1983, and was considered making this kind of the birth date of the internet because it really was officially a public space at that point, and now everybody could join and get access to it. It was no longer just a defense military protocol anymore. And so really that sums up the first almost 2 decades of the internet right there. Okay, now we finally get to see the world is coming online in 1983 thanks to TCP/IP. The biggest problem was here is that most homes still don't have computers capable of handling the internet for several more years to come. So other networks were also expanding, like NSFNet, which stands for National Science Foundation Network. This connected supercomputer centers to regional networks for research companies, educational branches, and universities. And that started with a 56K modem, and that was later expanded to a 1.5 megabits a second connection in 1988, and that was thanks to the Merit network that helped produce that, with IBM, MCI, and the state of Michigan helped fund that as well. Hey, Michigan. So this also started the Federal Internet Exchanges, which also completely killed ARPNet. So really, between the National Science Foundation Network and the Federal Internet Exchanges, you didn't need ARPNet anymore. And again, everything else was just on the web, and you could just direct to each other. So again, in the 1980s, obviously this is where the world starts picking up on the internet. They're like, well, wait a minute, Europe starts installing it and getting it everywhere. They're starting to connect to Australia, to Asia, Japan, Africa, the Middle East. And the list goes on and on. As the years go on, so did the development of the internet, and it just took over. And some countries tried their own versions of something similar to the TCP/IP connection, but pretty much this all faded out by the mid to early 1990s, and almost everything on the globe started switching to the TCP/IP internet connection status. And you got to give some credit to both Microsoft and Apple, because they were the dominant computers on the market, other than IBM and a few other random ones, that were running the software that propelled TCP/IP connections. So, got to give them some credit there. Now, again, I have to pause and say, I'm sorry. I had to cut a ton of history out of this episode. There is so much expansion that happens between 1990 and about 2010 with the internet that it's almost impossible for me to cram it into even multiple episodes. So I'm doing the best I can. If you guys have any interest in stuff that I am skipping over, please check my sources below. I post them there so that if you guys are interested and you want to know more about all these weird, crazy networks they were trying back in the day, please take a look, because it's actually really cool. And I know you guys all understand that's why I can't cram it in this video. It'd be super boring. So, back to the history. In the late 1980s, and again, all the way to the early thousands, is when we start to see internet service providers start coming out. Now that it's public and it's not just a defense thing anymore, now companies can physically license these internet lines, or phone lines back in the day, and make connections between people's computers. So this is where you started seeing companies like PSINet, UUNet, AOL, and Netcom, and these were some huge names back in the early 90s, early thousands even. You were still hearing these names all the time, and then these companies really helped get people online using their home computer, allowed them to play games and chat with friends, check the weather instantly, get news instantly, blog with friends, listen to music, and a ton more. And this was all because, all they had to do was get an ISP or like AOL, and they could just jump right online. And that is really the dawn of the internet, and where there was so much happening and growing so fast that it was destined to fail. Okay, so this big boom for the internet didn't last, and most companies failed or were forced to merge with other companies just to stay alive. And when the internet first started in the 1980s and early 90s, it was so crazy slow and hard to stay connected. Most websites were coded in all kinds of different ways, which just slowed the traffic down even more. The solution to this problem was the Web 2.0, which actually came out in 2004, and that allowed for not only faster networks at lower prices, but faster storage for online and better traffic communication. So that way you didn't have as many collisions and lost packets and all that fun stuff. And people were also starting to get computers that had way better software in it, way more RAM, like 2-3 times the amount of RAM they had just a couple years ago, faster hard drives that could keep up and handle the faster speeds, as well as all this new code, and that was making things so much better. There was a huge dawn of new companies as well. Google became more than just a private company and actually became a public company for once. We had Twitter come out, Facebook come out, and companies even like Wikipedia, which I'm even using this day to help with this exact video. So it spawned a better web interface for mobile users as well, which, don't forget, this is actually before the iPhone, just a few years, but you could still get online with a flip phone, and it was getting easier and easier every day. And then this is where we started to see a push away from power and more into power savings, and thus the dawn of the ARM chip, which is now a product that's in almost every single household in the United States. In a phone or a tablet or in some kind of computer somewhere, there's an ARM chip guaranteed. So a few years after that, you got 2010 and on, and now we're jumping not only in speeds, but because now we have gained fiber connections as well, and not just in rural areas, but remote areas, and better satellite communication speeds, more high-speed options in low-income areas like DSL is still available. And now you have mobile networks that were also becoming huge, like Sprint and Verizon were just exploding on the market right now. And obviously now Sprint is T-Mobile. Sprint actually at one point carried 20% of the United States' internet traffic, just over phones alone. So that's pretty crazy. The global reach was also increased by companies like Microsoft and Sprint and Verizon and more and more and more. And this was connected with undersea cables that they drudged out through the oceans that connect all the continents together. And we saw the death of paying for bits and bytes of data. Instead, you had an unlimited plan of data with a set speed that you were allowed to use or utilize on that network. And so that's kind of where we are today, and this is what kind of set the foreshadowing for streaming, which of course, that's a main vein for the internet today. It throws movies, music, clips of memes and GIFs and images all streamed through the internet simultaneously, and they pretty much have a whole line for that now. And now they can handle multiple devices in each home, in each neighborhood, in each city, in each country, and so on. It's amazing. And this is all, again, thanks to the TCP IP, and it'll definitely be overhauled pretty soon here. We've already got IPv4 and IPv6, which I did cut from this episode, but again, those explain the advances of the technology, and there's going to be more like that to come in the future. And I really think we'll see more connections between our social media networks, our video games, and online communities as well as the years go on. But again, you got to keep in mind, everybody, the internet has only been around for about 40 to 50 years. It is still in its infancy, and we have a long ways to go. It started just like all our other technologies, like an idea on a piece of paper. Somebody put it to the test between two computers, and voila, now we are running it around the world like it's going out of style. But in my next couple episodes, I'm going to try and break down how cloud computing fits into everything, as well as the metaverse, because that is a big one too, and I know you guys got some questions about those. So stick around. I know I learned something new, and I hope you guys did too. We'll see you all next time, everybody. Take it easy. But this network became known as ARPNet, which stands for Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. I'm going to try that one more time here. Over 20,000 scientists